I'm Chris,
I'm Edison, and you're watching Tanks and Thanks.
the science show about bridging the gap between scientists and hobbyists in the aquarium universe. So, Edison, what have you been doing this week?
Ah, work, school. It's been the first week of classes this week. Um, Almost had a heart attack. Didn't have a heart attack, but I went to the ER anyway. Um, and yeah, living the dream.
How do you almost have an art attack?
Well, I had the symptoms and everything, but then wasn't having a heart attack.
Well, that's good. I
Yeah,
mean, it's an improvement.
improvement, improvement.
Yeah, yeah. So, what about the community?
The
What have you
community.
been writing and getting ready to work on this week?
Well, so I found something interesting this week. We found species of goldfish that was thought to be extinct. Some redditor found it in a pond somewhere. The little meteor goldfish. They don't have a caudal fin. There was like
Ooh,
two of them in a little video. Kind of crazy stuff.
interesting.
But I've also been cooking up a little script for a little mini series, mini video on water because I find a lot of aquarists that I interact with don't understand the first thing about the chemistry of water.
Like, you mean the usual stuff or just advanced topics?
Uh, More or less usual stuff. So we're talking like pH, we're talking KH, GH, and I even went into like microbiome because it's part of the water.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's really important. I'd be surprised if people don't recognize the importance of water chemistry. But anyway, in my
Anyway,
week, I've been waiting for the government to tell me I have a job,
oh fun.
which is great. For those that don't know, I am an environmental technician, environmental scientist. So I determine whether things are going to go bad in the future. As in scripts wise, I've actually started writing the new series on the chemistry of rocks and chemistry of substrates. So I was actually going to probably tie each of the states, so all 50 of them, with a few different rocks. So that way, if somebody lives nearby, they can be like, what's this rock? Oh, now I have a definitive way to like figure out what it is.
Do you lick the rock?
Some of them you will. You
Sweet.
could. I mean, that is a very valid way to tell what a rock is because salt is a rock, if you guys don't know that.
That's true. That's true.
In
And some
fact, it's
rocks
the
are tasty.
most common way to figure out if salt is salt.
Interesting. And the cool thing about salt that's been on my mind is that because your tongue is wet, you never actually taste salt as sodium chloride. You taste sodium and chloride.
Why are you like this?
I don't know. I got the fish keeping autism, not the good at math or science autism.
I'm sorry, I got cursed with the other one.
So yeah, well, this is a kind of fun thing because I get a info dump about fish on people who
It-
want to hear about fish.
or even people that don't want to. What
And they just stumbled upon the stream and they're like, "Tanks and thanks, what's that?"
the heck is happening?
Right? And now they're
If
just
you're
as confused
here,
as us.
if you're here, please stay.
I wouldn't kick you out. We love you.
We're not going to do anything stupid on Twitch. So Twitch, don't ban us.
I don't have the figure for doing stuff like that on Twitch. Besides, I thought they allowed you to do that stuff on Twitch now. It just gets marked NSFW or something. I thought I read something about it or saw a meme about it. I don't know.
Man, if that's the case, I'm doing the wrong career.
Like I said, I don't have the figure for it. Nobody would want to see dad bods gone wild.
That's true. I don't ever expect to be able to see that.
But I'm well fed.
It's what happens when you get married.
Right. You know, for the first time in my life, I'm not like crazy stressed, so I'm actually eating properly.
Oh, that's good.
Even though almost had a heart attack.
Doesn't help your case.
No, it doesn't. But
I do think people might want to know what tanks you have and
oh,
what's in them and why.
do we want to look at them? So we have
I mean, we could do a tour later, but
so I have the 55-gallon right here. We've got my community fish that are surprisingly not freaking out that I'm in front of it because they will like mob because they like food. Um, I do too. And then here's my honey gourami breeding tank. Unfortunately, they haven't even built a bubble nest. We're waiting on it. And then
oh man,
we can even look over here. We've got Sir William in the top 10-gallon. He's beta. We have some gold minnows in there too. We have Carl. He's a beta as well underneath. And then we have my experimental 20-gallon tank. I've got like pea puffers, rams, cichlids, and some ember tetras in there. Everybody seems to be getting along just fine.
that's cool. Those cichlids are mean though.
Really?
Yeah, I think if there's one fish that I dislike more than any other fish is most cichlids.
Most cichlids. Yeah, I've kind of said that my whole life, my whole 2 years of keeping aquariums, um, since I found out what a cichlid was. But I've really enjoyed having my angelfish. I don't know if you can see her in here. Where is she?
Oh yeah, angelfish I guess are the only exception for that.
Oh, there she is. She's very very chill, very chill. And
Chill angelfish.
the rams are pretty chill. They just only get a little aggressive at feeding time.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, in mine, as you can see, my lovely tank, um, I have about, I'm guessing, 15 zebra danios, and I have about 12 amber tetras. I have platies, mostly because you can't get rid of them. And I also like platies. I like live bearers, but to an extent.
I'm a fan of live bears. I just have terrible luck with them. Carl's the only one with a with a platy in the tank. Used to have a bunch of them, and then they all just wiped out for no reason.
Wow. Live bearers usually are easy to keep.
Yeah, I have terrible luck with them, but pea puffers I can keep just fine.
Interesting. I also have assassin snails in this tank only, mostly because there's plants in here, and if I ever want to sell tank like plants online, people hate snails.
Some
So,
people do, some people don't. If they don't understand what a snail does, they hate them. I love snails.
well, yeah, snails are really good for ecosystems just because they eat all the uneaten food, and they also clean up and turn over sediment and that kind of stuff. Um, but usually the people that don't know what snails are for are also the same people that overfeed their tanks.
They overfeed, they overclean, and snails just kind of look ugly in those tanks.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them. But once you get things manageable to like a smaller population, they're great.
Oh yeah, they're really great because I get like frozen food for my fish. Carl, he only eats a little bit of bloodworms or something, and it'll just like float to the bottom, and all the snails eat it.
What snails do you have?
I just got ram's horn.
The worst.
I kind of like them.
Mystery snails are okay. So mystery snails are top tier snail.
They're like
Snail.
S class.
They are double S class.
There
The
you go.
reason why, and I'm kind of upset that you don't have any, is
So
because they're illegal in Idaho, but they're totally fine and legal
in
in
Utah,
Utah.
well, so
And they are
actually,
amazing and they have so much characteristic to them. Like I have never seen a snail ride on top of another snail and then float down and then do that all day.
oh yeah, I actually had some mystery snails in this tank, but because I was a beginning aquarist when I got them, I actually won them at a reptile expo. There was a anyway, got some mystery snails, and they were fun. They would like ride on the little uh bubble streams, and they'd like ride
Whoops.
up and then fall over, and they'd like do it again.
Okay. So now that we've proven that we're flesh bags in real life, um, what's been going on in the world of aquariums? I'd like to start first,
You
if that's
should.
okay. I'm a little biased.
Yeah.
So someone finally published the beta app for Aqua Builder. It's based off of the exact same formula and APIs from Aqua Advisor.
Oh, that one. Where they were trying to make their own like Aqua Advisor, but better.
Yeah, and actually updated because Aqua Advisor hasn't been updated in almost
Uh-oh.
10 years.
You froze for a second, but we're good. But yeah, no, you can
Okay.
look at it. You could just look at the website, and like Aqua Advisor is old as frick.
Yeah, but the issue is even like for my master's, if I wanted to study that, there's so much data that I would not be able to like even begin to
Oh,
compile.
right, right. There's too many fish that people like to keep, and for good reason. I like having a variety of fish, but it's like, how do I tell if it's overstocked? Well, you have to know a thing or two.
Yeah,
Somebody setting up and planning their first 20-gallon tank, how are they going to know what's going to fit in there? And besides, Aqua Advisor doesn't take into account plants, which I think should be a huge part of filtration.
that's true too. But the issue is with plants, they don't really take like hard chemicals out of the water column, like nitrates and phosphates and potassium. They only take that out of their root system.
Well, it
There
depends on
are
what plant.
plants that do,
Right, it
so
kind of
like
depends on what
floating
plants you get.
plants.
So I'm the kind of guy that likes floating plants. So we're talking like water sprite, hornwort, duckweed. We got anubias, things that just feed from the water column that don't require a root system, which is how they've done well with my gravel because I don't have gravel. I have gravel. I don't have dirt or anything down there
Mm,
because I'm crazy and I didn't want to tear apart this tank again.
yeah, 55 gallon is just, yeah.
Yeah,
I had a
flood the
90
basement
gallon and
once,
it's hard.
flood the basement once and move it 5 times for it. You kind of get over it real quick. So do the
What
fish.
I do think you should make a video on is those homemade bioreactors that you
Well,
have
so
going.
actually, I stole that from Corey on Aquarium Co-op. There's a video out there with him doing those.
I got banned from the Aquarium Co-op Facebook page.
I think that's a story that we need.
Okay, so I got banned last night, actually.
Oh wow.
And it was only because I was looking for our third host. Which, by the way, if you are at all interested and can make it to Salt Lake once every 3 months, please, 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 just message us. But yeah,
You were looking for a third post? Is that what you said?
for the podcast
Oh,
and for the channel,
okay, I
mostly
see.
because I can't keep doing it all by myself.
And then that got you banned from Aquarium Co-op?
I posted a photo of our channel mascot, Sherp,
Oh.
the panda Cory, and I put that I was looking for a third. And this
Ah,
morning I went to look for the group and I can't find it. So
that's a problem. I haven't been banned yet.
yeah,
I mean, I bought a couple
it's
things from
okay.
Aquarium Co-op. But yeah, Corey does a really good job explaining what these do. But essentially, K1 media really effective when fluidized, and you can just make a little bioreactor of sorts.
I
Kind of
need to
cool
make one.
concept. They're really fun. You just need a stabby thing and some air hose and a airstone. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Common stuff that you have.
common
My
stuff that
problem,
everybody has.
my
I'm
problem was
actually
actually,
probably going to be getting a lot more stuff this next week. So my old job working for the university, um, my boss has gotten fed up with trying to find people to take care of the tanks.
Oh, you know, because they
And
screwed you over.
wait, what?
Was that the one where they screwed you over?
No, that's the aquarium. The
Oh,
university
that's right.
didn't
That's
screw
right.
me over. I love them.
Okay. Good, good.
Um,
I get mixed up.
no, but my old boss at the university, he's getting tired of not having people that know what they're doing with like aquariums and stuff. And so he stopped hiring people this last semester, and he's going to be doing everything like by himself.
That's a lot. How many
Eh.
aquariums do they manage?
So if you can hear that, that is my cat sneezing.
Oh wow,
It's kind of
that's
sad.
impressive.
He has a tumor, and it's like
Ah,
right here in his nose. And so,
tickles his nose sometimes.
yeah, unfortunately, he's about to get put down this next
Ugh.
upcoming week.
Yeah,
It's just, he's not enjoying life anymore. So,
yeah.
but
I've had to put animals down too. Not fun, especially when
yeah,
it's fish, because you can't just like take them to the vet and have them put them down. You have to take them out back and just whack.
yeah, the most like easy way to do euthanasia for a fish is just using a knife. And a lot of
Yeah,
people are like, that's inhumane. Well,
actually, it is very humane.
it's the
Um,
most humane, actually.
yeah, I believe the procedure is you cut off their head and then just stab it,
Yeah. Or you just stab them
or just stab
and
them
then
through
cut
the
off
head.
their head.
Yeah, either
But
way, just make sure it's not moving.
it's true.
But then it's debatable on if fish even feel pain because, from what I understand, they just have a very reactionary
Their
nervous
nervous
system.
system is actually more sensitive towards the center, like their actual lateral line, than anywhere
Ah,
else on their body. And so if they're nipped on the lateral line, they'll feel it.
okay. And I guess it depends on what kind of fish, because if you have like the gourami with the little feelers, they if they get nipped there, they're not going to be happy.
No, I believe those are chemosensors though.
Okay,
So they just use it to scour for food, but and
okay.
smell
Because
for food, I guess.
if you, I like to mess with Gerard sometimes. The gourami in here, my platinum gourami, and like put my finger on the glass, and he'll kind of like try and feel it.
Oh yeah, Grommies do that.
They're funny. I love them.
Um, Anywho, going back to the university, he doesn't want to he doesn't want to keep so many like tanks going. So the goal originally was to have a complete taxonomic variation of most marine species and freshwater species for that matter. So that way, students in the invertebrate zoology and entomology program can go in and be like, I can hold this animal and I know what this is and I know what it looks like. They could also do experiments on them because they are invertebrates, even though I don't like that very much, but
Yeah,
you know how it is.
invertebrates are kind of
Um,
treated bad
unless you're a cephalopod. If you're a
unless they're
cephalopod,
cephalopod.
you have
They're a
godlike
special invert.
powers.
I believe most countries require you to what's the word? Knock them out for surgery. And anesthetize. That's
Oh
the
yeah,
word.
yeah. Um, but anyway, obviously that's not going to happen because he can't handle that many tanks, and also he hasn't had an employee that's been able to handle it since I left.
Right.
Like there was 25 tanks in total,
How many
and
fresh? How many salt?
um, actually more fresh than anything.
Oh, really? Just a couple.
Yeah, so he had like 18 that were fresh, and then 7 that were salt.
Okay, that's a pretty
But
fair
he
number.
can't do that anymore. And I donated quite a bit of my old tanks to the program under the assumption that he was going to use it. Well, he's not going to. So next week on Tuesday, I'm going to come and meet with him, and we're going to talk about what I can take home with me.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah,
New
there's
tanks
a
are
20
always fun.
gallon there and a couple tens. So,
Oh yeah. I'm at the point where the wife is like, no more tanks.
well, that's too bad.
5 is, I guess, the limit.
No,
We
it's
just
not.
don't have the space.
Hey, if you go back over to that wall,
Yeah.
the one that you have your 20, yeah, I see about 4 feet of vertical space that you could fit more tanks in.
More tanks, more space. Yeah, or I could we got the snakes over there too. We could just use that shelving.
You have snakes.
I have snakes. I have 3 snakes.
I love snakes.
Snakes are
Snakes are
awesome.
awesome.
Snakes are awesome.
Anyway,
Anyway.
speaking of my previous employer that's horrible,
Ah.
he did find out finally about the videos I've been posting on TikTok, and he is not happy.
Well, he shouldn't have done what he
He
did, right?
apparently had an entire staff meeting and had everybody sit down, and he said, "You can believe the things that he says or not, but end of the day, you still work here." Um, and then he did admit that he had an affair and that it almost ruined his life. And at the very end, one of the managers was like, "The affair is none of your guys' business. It has nothing to do with the work." And I'd hate to say it, but I think it does because the person he was having an affair with was making $50,000 more than the next 5 people.
Ah.
So it had everything to do with work. But anyway, I think I am done with that series. I have gotten in contact with PETA, which, being a zoologist, just is horrible because, right? Like, they're the worst person to talk to. They want nothing to do with zoos or aquariums.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, they're the only people that could probably go in there and make change. Because
Yeah.
sure as hell I can't.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of like once you make it Scientology's business, something happens. It's like I'm comparing PETA to Scientology.
Oh yeah, hmm I agree.
Yeah, but I don't know. All ethical. I mean, the ethical considerations of an aquarium should be thought about before you buy a living animal. You know what I mean? If
It's true.
just because a beta is living in a cup at the pet store doesn't mean it can live in a cup at home,
At home.
right?
Yeah.
With no heater, no nothing.
My ichthyologist professor was very much in the boat of just give it water and it'll live. And it's mostly because he only has that mindset because he keeps getting questions from like nieces and nephews, like why is all my fish dying, or like why do my betas explode basically because they have dropsy and
Yeah,
then they die. And then like he gets so mad at them because that's all he gets asked, not about salmon, which he spent, 4 or 5 years studying, plus his master's, plus his PhD. And so like when it came to me coming into class, I started to like, I don't want to say talk a little bit back to him, but like I'd be like, maybe a fish wouldn't be as comfortable. And he's like, what do you mean a fish is not comfortable? It's alive.
it's a living thing. I mean, you can take a kid, put him in a closet, and they'll survive, but they won't really thrive.
No, and I don't expect a child to thrive in a closet.
I'm not saying we should do that. Don't cancel me already. Uh,
Uh, Can I ask why? Why do you have children in closets? Do you have children in closets?
No, I don't have any children. Unless you ask PETA, then I have children in closets in my tank. Uh,
That was a bad joke.
that was a bad joke.
So one of the funniest things that PETA has ever done is back when Animal Crossing was really big.
Oh no.
They did a whole like free the tanks movement in Animal Crossing. But
I'm
the
sure.
issue with that is they needed to actually catch fish and put them in tanks in order to get to the point where they can actually take the screenshots.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Animal Crossing is a video game. It's not real.
Are you sure? Because PETA wants you to believe that.
Well, I'm at least 93% sure that it's not real.
93% sure. What's the
93% sure.
7%?
Mental disorder.
Uh, it makes sense. It's Animal Crossing, so
It is
that
Animal
even
Crossing.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move on because we've been rambling for quite a bit. Um, but just know that Aqua Builder is in beta right now. If you go on Google Play Store or if you go on Apple App Store, I'm pretty sure you can get it. It seems a little crappy quality at first, but you do have the ability to put in different types of salt water and different types of freshwater tanks. You have the ability to add multiple tanks. They have a web in mode too, so you can actually sign up and like create a username and password, and then you'd be able to transfer in between the two.
Can they do
And you can also
brackish?
add photos of your tank,
Can they do brackish?
probably. I'd
Okay.
assume so.
Because I haven't I
But
haven't
what are you going to
seen.
put in a brackish tank? Just
There's
a
not a
bunch
whole
of
lot.
random plants, narite snails, and archerfish.
And bumblebee gobies.
Oh, yeah. And mollies. Mollies too.
You could probably get away with guppies if you acclimate them well enough.
But why though? At that point, it's like,
Oh, there's a bunch of puffers that live in brackish.
oh yeah, that's true. But also you have to make sure you get the right pupper
Right puffer and the
because
right salinity.
yeah, because the issue is that most puffers are black water or
And
like low pH.
or they're misidentified all the time.
Yeah.
And that's always
There's
fun when.
pupfish. Pupfish are technically brackish.
Are you
Technically.
talking oh, pupfish. Um
They're
those are
endangered,
American.
so don't go out and go grab any.
Uh aren't American flagfish a pupfish?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, I
Those
didn't
ones
know
are
they were
not
endangered.
endangered though.
Right, right, right.
The
Okay, okay.
spotted blue and then the
Any other
I can't
pupfish.
remember what the other one is, but they only live on one carbonate shelf in Death Valley, and that's basically their entire ecosystem.
Oh wow.
So, but anyway, we're gonna move on. Um, Edison, can you read our bounty question announcement for us?
I have a we have a bounty.
Well, we just need more questions.
Oh,
You don't need to like read it word for word. I didn't even think I
okay.
typed it word for word.
Did you? Yeah, I don't even. Anyway, we're looking for questions to answer because, being that it's a science and hobbyist balance sort of thing, we need questions to answer. So we'd love to hear from you.
Where can they submit those?
That is a very good question.
How about they submit them to the email?
Ah, there we go. Email of tanks and science at gmail.com,
Yep,
and we will see
send
your
them
questions.
there. And also, if you can, just put your name or like I don't know. If you want
Or
to
an
remain
alias.
remain like anonymous, you can, but like I don't know. Give us a reason why you're asking the question.
Just don't ask
Fuel.
me why you need a big enough tank for a beta, or else, well, no, we could explain that.
That's been
Do
explained
ask
a
it if it's
billion
a
times, though.
do ask it if it's a genuine question. Don't troll, please.
I mean, you can troll.
It'd be kind of
I'd
fun.
answer questions. I'd love to see people try to troll for that, but
That would be fun.
who knows?
Just
All
email
right,
us.
so question number one for this week comes from an anonymous donator um,
That makes
on
it sound
Reddit,
like
actually.
a
Um,
an organ donation.
an organ donation, yes.
Yes.
Well, surprisingly, it actually has something to do with internal organs,
Okay.
but how do you identify disease early in aquariums?
Uh, for me personally, it's by the time you're identifying it, it's too late, is what I've noticed. Fish are really hard to treat. The easiest way to keep healthy fish is to keep them healthy. We're talking like, don't overstock tanks unless you're sure it can handle it, or, take measures if you're going to overstock the tank to keep the water clean. Because if there's enough surface area, the bacteria don't have to live in the water, which will infect your fish, and don't stress the fish out. If you have like substrate that's a mature substrate, you kick stuff up, it's going to stress out the fish. You're going to get weird diseases. Um, but generally, the best cure for any disease is prevention.
Definitely, I agree with that. Um, I think in the terms of identifying it early, um, fish behavior is something that you could look at. It's not always guaranteed, right? So like if I had a gourami that had swim bladder issues, or if I had a gourami that had a bacterial infection that causes it not to be able to swim at different levels within the water column, um, it would physically show those, right? The behaviors of the gourami would be off, and you'd be able to tell. Um, but I definitely agree with Edison here. It's you need to make sure that you're doing what you need to do, like weekly water changes if you need them, um, weekly maintenance. I don't want to say monthly dosing, but also being able to medicate kind of as needed type thing. If you're having freshwater tanks, just add like some salt to your water change routine. And not a lot, right? But
Right.
like just having that little extra bit to give fish the ability to counteract those infections by changing their by changing their hydromineral balance. So
Right. And I was actually with my water thing, I was actually kind of talking about prevention and such. Um, the trick is to get your microbiome to work for you. You want a good, healthy microbiome with lots of biodiversity because they fight each other. So when they're spending all their resources fighting each other, fighting for their resources, they don't have the resources to infect your fish and try and take them down against their immune system.
yeah, yeah.
So
So do you think we've addressed the question good enough?
I think we've just talked about prevention more so than identifying. Um, One of the best things you can do. I hate aquariumscience.org, but he does a good job of listing out his the diseases of fish. There's a manual of fish health that you can get. Different books that actually have good sourcing information. They don't. The one that I have doesn't tell you how to treat it as well, but it tells you what the cause is, so you can kind of guess at what you can treat it with.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Use your resources.
Right.
Obviously, there's Facebook groups and Reddit and those kinds of things. So
Absolutely. I know I'm somewhat active on Reddit. When I'm bored at work, I'll go scroll through Reddit and find some questions and
you're a lot more active than I
try
am.
and answer. I just like to info dump about fish. So even if it's like looking at a fish, I'll try and get back to you.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also just text us or message us through Gmail, and we can either email you back, or if we don't have enough people, which is more likely what's going to happen, we can answer your questions live on the show. So, okay, so question 2, Edison, do you have it up?
I do not. I should. I'm not
Rookie
prepared.
mistake, man.
Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake. We got technology here. Okay, I'm confused with it. I don't know where you even found the first question, so I can find the next.
So it should be at the very end
Oh, at
of
the
episode
end.
1.
Oh, hey, hey. There we go. What is the difference between parasitic and bacterial infections?
Do you want to go first,
I'll
or
let
do
you
you
go
want me to
first.
go?
I handled that one. I handled the other one first.
Oh, whatever. Okay. So the difference between parasitic and bacterial infections, one is a living organism that is actually embedded or attached to another organism that is taking away its nutrients. Um, a good example of this would be ropeworms. Um, they're very common in natural like settings. So if you ever went fishing and you found a fish, odds are it have ropeworms on the inside of it. Um, and bacterial infections, they are single-celled organisms that can also latch on the outside of fish and the inside of fish. So the most common one, or like not the most common form of like bacterial infection, but the most common outcome of a bacterial infection is swim bladder disease and dropsy, right? Those are two of the biggest ones that I can think of. And they're basically caused by a bacterial, or basically this infection, to cause almost like a cyst or an ulcer on the inside of their organs, which basically makes it so they can't pass any waste.
Right.
So,
Fish have a very odd digestive system compared to it's not as developed as say mammals digestive system,
some of them
and
are.
some of them are. It depends on the fish we're talking about, but
Yeah, if we're talking about the weird case of people who don't, or like the fish that don't photosynthesize and they just use chemoreceptors and chemosynthesis to live. But
right. uh but regardless, as heterotrophic fish go, especially in the home aquarium, most fish don't have a very good digestive tract, so a backup of any sort will usually kill them. So that's why I've been trying to actually like switch up what I feed my fish so that it's not like just one source of like flake food, because flake food is good as a staple, but it's good to switch it up because
yeah,
constipation will hurt your fish. But I digress. The question: a parasitic,
your fish would also like you too a lot more if you give different foods.
right? They really love those brine shrimp, man. But
Anyway,
um, anyway, the a parasite. We have to go back to what is symbiotic relationships. So a lot of bacteria will actually form symbiotic relationships with hosts. You have bacteria living in your gut. They digest food for you so that you can actually live. Um, the same is true with other bacteria in other settings. You have bacteria all over you. There's nothing is clean. As much as we want it to be, nothing is clean unless it
well, it would
just
suck if everything was clean. We wouldn't be able to actually perform any type of calorie burning.
right. So you need to have a very dirty gut so that you can actually digest food. Um, but the idea is that these bacteria in the water can generally coexist with fish. Sure, some get in their bloodstream and do other. If it gets into the bloodstream, that's a bacterial infection. But for the most part, bacteria kind of coexist. Whereas parasites, their whole thing is they need a host to feed off of. They cannot make their own energy. They can't. They have to live off of a host. Think of like uh,
A
flukes, for
leech.
example. A leech. Leeches don't eat anything except for blood, and so they have to leech onto something and eat its blood, the food that it's already eaten. And so a parasite is completely detrimental to your fish, whereas a bacterial infection, it's kind of just like it accidentally ended up there.
Mhm. And usually more cycled the tank is, so like the more nitrate heavy a tank is, the more rich, the more susceptible they are to bacterial infections because the regular bacteria that has nowhere to go can't not go in the water column. And if you have any type of bacteria that can cause infections, they don't have anywhere else to go but the water column as well.
Right? That's why having adequate filter media, plants, or any surface in the tank is crucial to building a happy tank.
Hmm. And actually, that leads us to question three, which Edison is totally going to answer first because he threw me under the bus for the last one.
Yep.
Why is too much nitrate a bad thing?
Well, how detailed do you want this answer?
Oh,
Because on the surface level, nitrate is at low levels non toxic, generally speaking, from what I understand, because it is the conjugate base of a strong acid. Therefore, it is generally neutral in pH. It doesn't really affect the water. It's, if I remember the solubility rules of compounds correctly, it is always soluble in water, even when bonded to things that are generally not soluble in water.
it's true. This makes it
And
horrible, but
right, what I understand is that too much nitrate builds up and it starts feeding algae, it starts feeding other things that are going to mess up your tank.
yeah.
But
So there's been research done over the last couple years about carrying capacity of bacteria in certain settings. And from what they were able to determine, they were able to figure out that if you had enough NO3, well, okay, so two things would have happened. First, or I guess three things. First, nothing, right? Because you always have to have in science the no reaction,
right,
right? Secondly, the chemical reaction of NO2 being oxidized into NO3 would run backwards, which means that if there's an overabundance of NO3 and the bacteria will start, the nitrosomids will start attacking that NO3 and it will run backwards to basically have them have food to support the carrying capacity that they've read that like that they have reached. And then the last one, and this is kind of the more common one, is all of a sudden you have a high input need for, sorry, everybody.
right. Because what I understand about nitrates is there's nitrification and denitrification. Both are happening simultaneously in your tank. Generally, denitrification happens in the substrate where there's a lack of oxygen, because nitrification is the ammonia changing into nitrate, whereas denitrification is nitrate turning into ammonia. So, because you can gain energy going either way because of the funny thing about oxygen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean that's totally correct. Um,
And
but what I was saying
right,
prior, before my wife decided to call me, um, in most instances, in most instances, you can't support a very high or possibly more than applicable carrying capacity for nitrates continually, if that makes sense. So
Right, water.
eventually those nitrates are going to start dying off, which means more ammonia, which means more nitrite, and then not enough to contain or work on the existing. So,
So what I'm understanding is that there's the water has so much carrying capacity for dissolved things. Water can only
yep,
have so much not water in water. And so if you have a buildup of nitrates, it becomes a point where the water can't hold more nitrates, and so they have to decompose essentially into smaller molecules
yep.
that the
And
water can
it's
hold.
not really even decomposing into smaller molecules, it's just bacteria dying. It'd be the exact same, it'd be almost as identical as you taking an antibiotic, right? Where you're killing all of the active bacteria in your gut, but then you're immediately adding poisoning on top of that,
Ah,
right? Because they can't bounce back from it.
right. So it's and if I'm not mistaken, when you're cycling a tank, you have to be really careful how much ammonia you're putting in there because ammonia is actually toxic to most living things, including the ammonia eating bacteria. Therefore, you have to control it so that it stays within a reasonable level. Um, and
Yeah.
that's true. If you have too much nitrate, it will cause problems.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it all boils back down to carrying capacity, right? If you're approaching it, even bacteria has a capacity, and a lot of people don't know that. So,
Because generally bacteria kind of see to themselves, they decompose on their own. And if you're
yep.
regularly maintaining your tank, or you have a system set up so that you have like plants that will take the nitrates out of the water for you, you don't have to worry about it as much because you have to have a plan for it, right? That's why you have a
Mhm.
toilet in your house. Right? This is literally bacteria pee. They need to get rid of it.
It's true. Okay, so we've been wafting a bit. I think it's time for the big discussion,
Oh boy.
which this is a commemorative first episode for us, right? And we don't know how long we're going to keep doing this or if anybody else is going to join. I've enjoyed doing it, so I think I'm going to keep doing it. Um, Mostly because it's just me and Edison talking.
Yeah.
Um, but the biggest question that everybody wants to know, what was your first aquarium and how did it go?
My first aquarium.
How
Well,
old were you? I want all of the details.
all the
We want all
juicy,
of the details.
juicy details. So I think it was about summer time. I was 20, 21, 22. Uh, my dad had suggested something because I was really into snakes. He's like, "What are you gonna do when the snake dies? What are you gonna do with that aquarium?" Well, it wasn't die. It was just gonna outgrow the 10 gallon. He's like, "What are you gonna do with that?" And I was like, "He's like, what if you put fish in it?" And I was like, "Fish." So I started thinking about fish. I'm like, I want some fish. This was before the snake even outgrew the 10 gallon. But I wouldn't recommend using a terrarium for aquarium. They're not built the same.
I
But
mean,
anyway,
depends on the brand, I guess, but
it really does. It really does. And actually, Carl's tank down there is my first aquarium. I still have the first tank, at least the physical tank, not the. I guess I preserved some water in this tank because this was my second tank actually. No, it was my third because I got the 20 and then this. But anyway, regardless, first tank, I had 5 little guppies in a 10 gallon. So actually reasonably stocked. Didn't have any live plants. I had a filter,
oh man,
but I changed the filter every month, like the packaging said. I did my water changes, and I was my guppies lived for a long time. Actually, I was pretty impressed.
well, that's good. Usually, a lot of people have the same experience I had, so
Oh
I'm
boy.
surprised that yours lasted as long.
Yeah, the guppies actually died in this tank. I don't have any of the original guppies that I had, but they lived a good almost I believe like at least a year.
It's longer than most freshwater fish sold from a pet store.
Especially
Like, I
PetSmart.
think it's shocking the percentage of fish that live to the second year of life
Right,
from a pet store.
right. Uh, between the kid that wants a beta but doesn't want to actually do any research or do anything more than put it in a bowl, to the people that put three tiger barbs and a guppy in a 5 gallon and wonder why the guppy got torn apart.
Yeah, I was about to say that poor guppy.
And being that it's only 5 gallons, the tiger barbs will usually tear each other apart too.
It's true.
But yeah, mine wasn't a typical first aquarium experience. I actually had quite an enjoyable first aquarium experience.
Not to mention yours was a little bit later in life than most people.
Well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we did have an aquarium way, way back when I was a little kid. I vaguely remember it. We had I think it was a beta, called him Bloopy. He lived in like maybe a two. No, it was only a 1 gallon tank. No filter, no heater, no nothing. He didn't live very long, obviously.
So I guess I need to preface this. I was a very stupid child. So, as most children are,
Right, right. We learn, we
um,
grow.
and I went to Walmart, and this was back when they sold fish. You already know that this story is going to be great
Well, I mean,
based off
anything
of
from
that set.
Walmart is great.
Wait, what?
Anything from Walmart, just top notch.
Oh, yeah. So I had a goldfish that I won from the fair because back in, at least in Southern California, I don't know if it's still the norm for most fairs, but I was able to win a goldfish from one of those games.
You already know it's a comet goldfish. It's not like
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just a common comic goldfish.
it's not like a
But
rainbow or something that could survive in a smaller tank. Not a problem.
yeah, so I had a bowl and it died. It froze to death literally in
Oh,
the middle of the
really?
night. Yeah, and instead of accepting that, I went to Walmart and I found the coolest fish that I could possibly find. I'm going to give Edison 3 tries to guess what fish I bought for the first time at the age of 12.
So I want to say, because I know what your favorite fish is, I want to take that guess. I'm gonna go with the Cory, a panda Cory to be specific.
Eh. Strike one.
Okay, we're gonna have to go with a beta then.
Strike two.
Okay, okay. We're gonna
Remember, I said coolest fish
coolest fish, coolest fish.
to a
When
12-year-old.
okay, to a 12-year-old is probably gonna be a ball of shark because it says shark in the name.
You were close, but
It was a
a
rainbow shark
dinosaur bitcher or a
dinosaur.
dinosaur biker
Oh,
if
okay.
you're in Utah and you can't handle the term bitcher. Sorry,
I mean, I'm
Edison.
in Utah, but I can say bitcher because it's an
Well, yeah,
adjective.
it's still the scientific way to say a bitcher.
A bitcher. I mean, they have them at PetSmart, I believe. But yeah,
Yeah,
dinosaur. Yeah, so it's either the dinosaur or the shark. It was
you
unless
were close. Your thought process was kind of spot on. So my first experience buying, whoops, my first experience buying a fish for myself was a dinosaur bitcher, and it was about yay big, you know. same
Right.
size that you normally would get. And the guy distinctly, okay, so this is one of those weird facts that I remember for all time and eternity. His name was Tomas, and he was an
Okay.
elderly black gentleman. And he
All
was
right.
like, "Do you have a pump for this fish?" And I distinctly remember hearing that and saying, "I don't know what a pump is." So I said, "Yes, of course I do, because I'll get the fish if I say yes."
Right.
And so I picked up the fish, and this was back before my parents drove me places
Oh
like
man.
to get things. And so I picked up the fish and I walked it like 3 miles home. Me and him had a grand old time,
Now,
talked the entire time, looked at
w-
bugs.
you said SoCal, right?
Yeah, it was in SoCal. So there wasn't a big issue with like
Temperature.
temperature or anything like that. If
Okay.
anything, it was too warm than
Right.
it was cold. Um, I take him home. I put him in his new house, and me and him hang out for a little while, and then we go to bed.
Okay.
The next morning, so okay, at this time I have cats, and so I
Oh
put
no.
a picture frame on top of the tank of the bowl, so that way he couldn't get yanked out by the cats.
Right.
So I wake up the next morning, the picture frame is still there, no him,
He just gone.
just an empty bowl.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm looking around, I'm trying to find him. He had jumped out of the tank and onto the floor because there was no oxygen in the water.
Right.
And so he was trying to breathe. And so when I picked him up, he was alive.
Oh my goodness.
And so my dad called the guy, and this is the only reason why I remember the guy's name, because my dad figured it out, because there's only so often you can say elderly black guy on the
Right.
phone. And then eventually he talks to the guy, and the guy's like, I told him specifically he needed a pump, and he said yes. And my dad, you could see the look on his face, just like, okay, click. And then he immediately turned around to try to beat me
Oh my goodness.
because I lied to not only him, but the guys at Walmart. Thankfully,
Right.
the guy from Walmart was like, yeah, you can bring him back and then we can get you something else.
Yeah.
But yep, that's the first fish I ever bought for myself.
See, I was expecting it to be stuck to the picture frame.
Oh no, that would have been funnier.
Yeah, that would have been way funnier. But, you
But
know,
I went a very long time after that not having tanks until
yeah.
I was in college, and it was my first semester, and I got a job working for the university doing their saltwater research tanks.
Oh wow.
So until then, I was like anti aquariums, and then all of a sudden, I was like, this could be something really fun for the future for me to do. Little did I know that I changed my entire degree to be biology with minors in natural resources and geology, so that way I could take care of fish a lot better and be able to share the science I learned with everybody. So,
Right. Keeping fish has actually changed my life too. I'm trying to do pre-med at the moment, but I got a psychology uh major. But anyway, learning the stuff in pre-med like chemistry, OChem, things like that, it's a lot easier when I have something I can see, something I can touch, something I can work with
put into
to
context.
right because my whole last semester I was doing a intro to chem 2, I think. Anyway, uh chemistry is kind of a harder subject for me just because of how quick they move and how many subjects they have to cover. But I was able to understand it a lot better than when I was in high school just because I was like, oh, pH, yeah, fish need pH,
I
right?
mean, that's
And so
true.
it was like I started understanding things like that because of fish.
Yeah. And it definitely helps you see how the world works a little bit better. Like you can actively see ecology of life through fish, right?
Right. And Diana Wallstead's book, The Ecology of the Planted Aquarium, amazing book. Highly recommend it. But she talks about ecology, and this is something, it's kind of more advanced stuff. Talks about chemistry, talks about biology, microbiology, things like that, and she explains it very well. And I read this book just for the fun of it. I picked it up. I had it shipped to me. Picked it up, and I was finished with it in 24 hours. It's not like a really long book, but
It's not a textbook either. It's more of like it's an easy read.
it is an easy read textbook, essentially, is what I would call it, just because it's got so much technical terms, so many technical things. Diana Wallstead does an amazing job of putting it in layman's terms.
Yeah, she does something I could never do.
Right.
Like I even messaged her. I've had email correspondence with her, and when I was talking to her about my idea for my master's program, she was like, "Why don't you just talk to the guy at uh, North Carolina State at Chapel Hill, the guy that I did all of my stuff with?" And I was like, "Because of all of these reasons." And she's like, "Well, if you're really looking to get into aquaculture, it's a little overkill. But if you definitely want to learn the science behind why things are there, do it through North." So,
No,
and I am not going to North Carolina State because they didn't accept me because I suck at school. I am going to
that's it.
Unity though. Unity Online is awesome.
Okay, I got you.
Would recommend.
Would recommend. Yeah, I do like half my classes at the U online anyway. The U of U.
Horrible human being going to the U of U.
Yeah, not the zoo, not BY Zoo. You're not even from
Okay,
Utah. You don't know
so
the
I
thing.
think that's everything for this week. Edison, is there anything else you want to add?
Um, our This is not our normal streaming time. Our normal streaming time is we're shooting for 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Fridays.
Yes, that's right. That might change, especially if the government ends up giving me a job and I have to drive to INL every day of the week
Oh,
because that's an hour away.
that's
So
a
it might be
that's
pushed
convenient.
back to like 7 or 8 at Fridays. But
Friday evenings.
Fridays is our normal time. Um, and I'm trying to get this out on Spotify probably tonight or maybe tomorrow if I'm lucky. And then, yeah, YouTube will probably have it tomorrow too.
Yep.
So,
Maybe even if we're feeling lucky, feeling funny, we might make some TikTok clips.
oh, I'm gonna have Edison do that though because I don't see my family enough anyway.
Yeah.
And I also need to post some too. But again, I'm gonna have Edison do it.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. See what happens.
Cool.